Good afternoon. Thank you for participating in the America Recycles Innovation Fair and Summit. My name is Dale Carpenter. I'm currently the Chief of our Sustainable Materials Management and Pollution Prevention sections in U.S. EPA Region 2. I will be serving as moderator for this panel session on effective strategies for reducing contamination in the residential recycling stream. Today, we are going to highlight some successful strategies and programs that have reduced contamination in the recycling stream at the state and local levels, as well as at material recovery facilities, also known as MRFs. Reducing contamination in the recycling stream is extremely important and is included as one of the key objectives in the proposed National Recycling Strategy, as well as an important measure in the proposed national recycling goals. Contamination can occur at various times throughout the recycling process and negatively affects the ability of material recovery facilities or secondary processing facilities to produce high quality, clean, recycled materials that can serve as feedstock for new materials and products. Reducing contamination in the recycling stream will enable more material to be recycled and can result in less material being discarded and higher quality recycled materials produced for manufacturing feedstock. Therefore, reducing contamination levels is important as we seek to improve the quantity and quality of our materials to be recycled. Let's meet our panelists for today's session who will be talking about this important issue. Our first panelist is Asami Tanimoto, Community Program Manager for the Recycling Partnership. Asami brings more than a decade of experience managing, analyzing, and solving environmental and sustainability problems. She has a broad background in air quality, water, energy, waste, remediation, and green buildings and infrastructure. Asami is especially passionate about connecting individuals and organizations so they can share and collaborate. As a community program manager at the Recycling Partnership, she oversees grants to communities and provides technical assistance with a keen eye towards bringing partners together to enhance local efforts. After Asami, our next speaker will be James Jennings. James Jennings, the manager of the Illinois EPA's Waste Reduction and Compliance section, which oversees Illinois' statewide materials management, regulatory enforcement, and state and federal reporting programs. James previously served as an assistant legal counsel to the Illinois EPA, representing the agency in materials management and solid waste rulemaking hearings and permit appeals. James will be followed by Aaron Jensen, an environmental specialist with the Division of Solid and Hazardous Waste of the New Jersey DEP. Aaron studied at Rowan University and has a degree in environmental studies. She's been with the department for 3.5 years. Her work focuses on recycling activities in the state, including carrying out the New Jersey municipal recycling grants and being the point of contact for New Jersey's Recycle Coach. Next up will be Sarah Reeves, the Executive Director of the Chittenden Solid Waste District in Vermont. Sarah has 15 years experience working in the municipal solid waste industry in New England, starting as a municipal recycling coordinator. Sarah has served on several nonprofit boards related to municipal waste and recycling, such as the Northeast Recycling Council, where she served as president for 3 years, the Product Stewardship Institute, and the Municipal Waste Managers Association. Following Sarah, Leslie Hatchell, a recycling educator and coordinator for the York County, South Carolina government, will be our next speaker. Leslie is a South Carolina certified recycling professional with 25 years of experience in the recycling industry. She has a Bachelor of Science degree from Winthrop University and has been instrumental in developing a comprehensive recycling program utilizing events, partnerships, and grants. Our final speaker this afternoon will be Eduardo Rodriguez. He is an operations manager at the City of Phoenix Public Works Department, where he leads operations for 2 transfer stations, 2 material recovery facilities, and a compost facility. Through his career, Eduardo has managed a $4.5 million MRF upgrade, implemented a new scale management system, and managed a $70 million operating and capital improvement program budget. As a reminder, we are going to hold all questions until the end, but we encourage you to submit your questions throughout the presentations. Just type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Now, I'll hand this over to Asami Tanimoto to get us started.
Hello, my name is Asami Tanimoto, and I'm a Community Program Manager at the Recycling Partnership. The Recycling Partnership is a national nonprofit 501c3. We work across the recycling system to help Americans recycle and recycle well. And we do this by increasing access to recycling, increasing capture of recyclables, and by improving the quality of recyclables that are collected. We have projects across the U.S. to provide grant funding for carts and for education campaigns to increase participation and to reduce contamination. And we can do our work because we have funding partners from across the material supply chain buying into our mission. We are a data-driven organization. When a community does an education campaign with our grant dollars, we ask for tons of garbage versus recycling, participation of residents in the recycling program, and contamination levels before and after the campaign. This helps us see how effective each education campaign is. Our anti-contamination work originated in 2016 when we partnered with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Based on that work, we created our anti-contamination toolkit for single-family curbside recycling programs, which includes this recipe to reduce contamination. So 1, you want to inform the resident what is and is not accepted in your recycling program in a clear and concise manner. An annual info card is a good way to do this. Then 2, once people are informed, give personalized feedback where the behavior is happening. So our Feet on the Street program has inspectors looking in each recycling container and leaving an oops tag with a specific contaminant marked so that the resident knows exactly what they did wrong. Then 3, communicate specifically about your top issue contaminant using a postcard, the backside of your oops tag, and amplify that message through digital ads, signs, bus stop ads, and so on. This is the basic recipe we encourage communities to follow to reduce contamination from single-family curbside recycling programs. And now I'll talk about 3 recent projects that have incorporated this recipe and what made them successful. Last year, we helped grant dollars from the Ohio EPA and matching grants from the MRFs to 5 communities in Ohio: Akron, Columbus, Centerville, Fairfield, and Cincinnati. They belong in 3 MRF sheds, or areas that share a material recovery facility. This project brought together the Ohio EPA, cities, counties, solid waste management districts, and MRFs to work collectively on reducing contamination. The anti-contamination recipe worked whether it was for 1,500 households in Centerville or 33,000 households in Akron. And the city saw about a 40% reduction in contamination levels. The top issue message was either don't bag your recyclables or no plastic bags in the recycling cart in each city. Having inspectors leave personalized feedback on each recycling cart over 4 weeks can be expensive. But they were able to show that even with the cost of running a tagging campaign, there's still a significant return on investment from decreasing contamination and unbagging good recyclables. By starting small in some of these cities, we are able to convince skeptical stakeholders to try out the Feet on the Street program with less investment of time and money. I think now everyone's convinced that this works, so we'll be working again with Akron, Cincinnati, and adding Gahanna to the mix in 2021. Now the state of Ohio can continue to offer contamination project assistance through their regular grant cycle in partnership with these stakeholders, making this program sustainable. And we're replicating this work in Michigan with $2.1 million to help 100 communities. Atlanta is another Feet on the Street project that expanded from an earlier pilot in 2017 with 5,000 households to all 98,000 single-family households in 2019. That is a lot of households to get through, and each household is inspected 4 times. The city was broken out into 5 groups of about 20,000 households each so that the number of inspectors you need to hire at once is manageable. LeadPoint led the hiring and managing of inspectors for Atlanta. Data from halfway through the tagging season in 2019 showed that the routes that were already tagged had 19% less contamination than the routes that had not been tagged. This is a multi-year project that also includes multifamily and college campus components, so they're currently regrouping to see how to move forward with COVID and the results from the 2019 Feet on the Street work in mind. Feet on the Street can give you household by household data of how frequently the recycling cart is set out in a month, what types of materials are confusing to residents, and whether the tagging was effective at clearing up that confusion. You can then use this data to identify pockets of cities that are behaving differently, like who's contaminating more and who's participating less, who needs more education, and what kind of message is needed, to guide how messaging will be designed in the future. Instead of repeating an outreach method that didn't work the first time, or wasting your resources in an area that's already performing well, specific data gives you a powerful tool to help you plan your outreach and engage with appropriate stakeholders like neighborhood organizations or council districts. This behavior profiling analysis was done by SWACO, the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio, Atlanta, and the City of Spokane, which is the next community I will talk about. Spokane's project included feet on the street in the city and informational tagging with no lid lifting or personalized feedback outside of the city under the jurisdiction of the county. While it's always nice to have the same material list in a region, that's not the case here between the city and the county, but resource sharing can still happen in these situations. The 2 jurisdictions worked with us to create a consistent no plastic bags campaign. They shared a consultant who did both types of tagging work, saving on administrative costs. And their MRF included pilot routes from both the city and the county into their routine sort queue so that we had before and after contamination data. This was the partnership's first Feet on the Street work on the West Coast. Last year, we surveyed and talked to cities, MRFs, and residents in California, Oregon, and Washington to understand the landscape of recycling on the West Coast and to make connections so that we can start to test our recipe in this region. The region has established infrastructure in almost every medium to large-sized city, creating a norm of recycling, which is not the case in many other parts of the U.S. But contamination is an issue. Residents that value recycling are clearly not doing the right thing, even though they want to, and some think they are. So one of the key opportunities we identified was giving residents more clear and consistent messaging. In these highly motivated communities, just giving people a reminder, a trigger to recycle correctly, may nudge behavior in the right direction, as we saw in Spokane. Both the personalized feedback and the informational tag resulted in overall contamination decrease of 40%. And this echoed another study that was done in Snohomish County, Washington, that we were not a part of. There's more to learn from this region, but what we learned last year through our research and the opportunities we identified to help reduce contamination were compiled in a report called the West Coast Contamination Initiative Research Report that's available on our website, recyclingpartnership.org. So please check it out. What we see over and over again is that clear and consistent messaging is key to reducing contamination. And whether it's with the state agency and the hauler, the MRF, or your neighboring communities, bringing people together to pool resources, both time and money, goes a long way to success. All of our partners, the Ohio EPA, the communities in Ohio, the City of Atlanta, Spokane County, the City of Spokane, and all their haulers and MRFs really led these projects that I talked about today. So you can do this too. And if there's anything the Recycling Partnership can do for you, please let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asami, for that enlightening presentation. Remember, if you have questions for Asami, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Next up is James Jennings from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency.
Good afternoon. I'm James Jennings, and I manage the Illinois EPA's Waste Reduction and Compliance section, which is the portion of the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency that's been responsible for addressing some of the statewide concerns related to recycling contamination in Illinois. 2 years ago, our group was tasked with participating in a statewide recycling task force with the objective of minimizing contamination statewide. And prior to going into the task force, one of the things that an employee in our group suggested is using Google's autofill feature to see in very real terms what we are up against. Our group was of the understanding that a portion of issues related to recycling contamination ultimately came down to misunderstanding and in some cases apathy from residents that we could help address. And as you can see from the screen grab, that's exactly what bore out. We saw that people were concerned about recycling being bad, not important, good, a lie, and not the answer. And so, recognizing this, we took the information to the task force that we'd been appointed to and operated through this lens. We wanted to address the mythology behind this and find a way to pierce it in a way that would ultimately fix some of the recycling concerns in Illinois. The backdrop that we were operating against, though, was pretty narrow. So we have 12.7 million people, but only 12 recycling facilities to service more than 1,000 municipalities. Thankfully, these entities, as well as representatives from the waste industry, units of local government, US EPA, and the environmental community, agreed to serve on the Illinois Recycling Contamination Task Force. This group was ultimately discharged with attempting to develop information that could be made available to the public and techniques to minimize the volume of material that was coming to recycling facilities that was not going to be acceptable to send to an end market. And I certainly can't thank everybody who was on the committee, but I want to provide a special thank you to the individuals who helped form the group and played a really critical role in its development, and that includes Lisa Disborough of Waste Management, Walter Willis from Swalco, which is Lake County, Illinois, Andy Derrick from DuPage County, and Jennifer Jarland from Kane County. Our first step as a group was to survey each of the 12 MRFs in Illinois. And the function of this survey was to get a sense of the boundaries of the work that we were going to be conducting as a group. We wanted to be able to determine what materials everybody wanted and what had to be done to render those materials acceptable, the materials that nobody wanted, and then the intermediary items, the materials that could be accepted under some circumstances at some MRFs and not others, and then what those circumstances were. The idea being that we wanted to appropriately frame the information that we were providing to the public to maximize the volume of marketable material coming to these facilities. So the group then applied that methodology, reached out to each of the 12 facilities, and over a 2-month period received responses in great detail from each of those sites. And our results were pretty jarring. There was a wide range in the inbound contamination rates from these facilities, in some cases, as you can see, as high as 30%. One of the unifying factors, though, were the battery of materials that were problematic for individual facilities. We saw a core group of items that were causing high levels of contamination, many of which were potentially divertible through other areas of the materials management collection network within the state of Illinois. We then evaluated what resources we had within the agency and sought to apply that knowledge in a way that would be publicly consumable and help minimize the volume of contaminants in Illinois recycling facilities. Using this information, we got to work, and we decided that we needed to build an online tool accessible to everyone in Illinois that outlined what would go in their bins. And so the video here is a reflection of what we actually utilized. We took an example of each of the types of items everybody always wanted and presented it in a graphically pleasing manner. It allowed people to highlight it, see information that could potentially render those usable items contaminants, and then if they had questions about them, trying to address some of the unique nuances that may vary on the local level, there was a direct link to the inbox that is supported by a variety of staff within our group. Again, here the objective was to make sure that people were able to maximize the volume of material in a non-contaminating way that was sent to MRFs. So we also, though, sought to capture the other materials, the things that nobody wanted. So plastic bags, for example, were one that, because of a piece of legislation and the impact on MRFs, that were frequently referenced. Same with sharps. In Illinois, it's actually illegal to put sharps in your recycling bin. So we wanted to highlight that for people, but then help them address the next question, the answer of what I do with that. And so from there, we allowed them to click through for more research sources from the agency. Now, this was certainly not an exhaustive list of materials, although it is relatively robust, but we wanted to capture here the things that most MRFs said that they had concerns about and underscore for them what the alternatives were. Now, once you had the alternatives identified, we wanted to help people find a way to actually deliver their material in an environmentally sound manner and in a manner that complied with state law. And so from there, we developed this mapping tool. So if you select from those graphics an item that cannot currently be accepted by Illinois MRFs, it takes you here. And from there, you can enter your zip code. So 60601 is downtown Chicago. And then it will filter through the variety of materials that can be safely handled and diverted from landfills in a way that does not render them problematic for recycling facilities. And it's overlaid with Google Maps to allow you to use your specific location to then find the closest entity near you. So here we're in downtown Chicago, and it's filtering through the variety of materials that, on the whole, MRFs said either they did not want or that there might be some other alternatives nearby that would be workable for a collection. And so from here, you would select, using our example, any of these items, but we focus on electronics because electronics, for the purposes of this exercise, shows how populated the map is. From there, you can select any of the variety of electronics collectors that have either registered with the state or have selected that they'd like to be identified on this map. Once you select it, the map will zoom in for you, and then you can select your direction from the point that you've chosen. It integrates with Google Maps and allows you to take your material to the closest location near to you. And then, like with every other mapping tool online, you have the option of printing it, and then you get the roster of items or roster of directions to help you source the area closest to you. So this tool has enabled us to allow residents to not only identify the types of materials that are potentially problematic statewide and are rendering otherwise marketable bales of recyclables contaminated, but it's also helped support some of the other recovery programs like our drug collection program, our sharps diversion program, and our electronics recycling program by providing valuable materials to those programs and diverting them from the recycling stream. To this point, we're actually in the process of initiating a second MRF survey so that we can have some data to compare to those 2017 figures. And we're optimistic, based on the traffic that's been directed toward this website and the wide use by various local governments, that we should see a lower contamination rate than what we saw in 2017. This map is a dynamic tool that's constantly evolving between the number of collection sites that are available as well as the information that we can input. And so I would caution any entity who wants to pursue this to ensure that you're going to have the resources available in the staff commitment to continue to update it. But it's proving to be a very valuable tool for our agency, for our local governments, and for our residents. And I am very encouraged that over the long haul, we will see a meaningful and positive impact in reducing recycling contamination in the state of Illinois.
Thank you, James. As always, if you have questions for James, please type them in the Q&A box below, and we'll get to them after all the speakers have presented. Our next speaker is Aaron Jensen from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Jensen, and I'm from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And today I'm going to talk to you about New Jersey's procurement of Recycle Coach, what it is, and how we use it. So what is Recycle Coach? Recycle Coach is an online platform for residents to learn more about local recycling rules. They provide collection schedules for both solid waste and recycling pickups, information on how to recycle specific materials, special event reminders like household hazardous waste and e-waste events to branch collection and bulky waste pickup days, reporting tools for everything from missed pickup to graffiti in parks, educational material for residents to learn more, along with many other things. What's great is that none of this requires personal information like names, passwords, and phone numbers. And you only need to provide an email if you sign up for the optional reminders by email, or you can request just to get push notification reminders on your phone. Reminders can be personalized, so you only get reminders for your designated zone. The Recycle Coach team also provides full tech support and marketing support to make sure that they are doing everything they can to help a municipality succeed in their recycling goals. Recycle Coach was purchased by the NJDEP in late 2017, and it has a 3-year contract with the option of additional extensions. It's free to use for all New Jersey County and municipal residents, with the goal of educating the residents to lead to a reduction in contamination of the recycling stream. Each municipality and county have their own admin pages, which helps them gather vital insights into residential behaviors, data, reports, and peer reviews. The app also allows for direct resident communication. It's fully customizable for each municipality and county program and is available in English and Spanish. These are some of the demographic information that we have available to us. Recycle Coach submits quarterly reports to us, giving us update on how we're doing in coverage. So far, New Jersey is the first state to purchase the app for the entire state. 19 out of our 21 counties are fully active. The other 2 have previously enacted similar technology that they didn't wish to switch over, which could confuse residents, which is understandable. 262 out of our 565 municipalities are fully active, which means that they have contacted Recycle Coach and made sure all the information on there is correct and have posted the Recycle Coach app on their webpage. And those municipalities represent 62% of the New Jersey population. Now, how do you go about setting up the process? The first step is promotion. Let everyone know that there is a new free recycling tool available to them. We started with email blasts, webinars, letters to the mayors, and speaking at state recycling events. All of this was assisted and facilitated by Recycle Coach's team, including setting up the webinars and creating and sending out the emails. The next step, which really happened simultaneously, was Recycle Coach went to every county and municipal recycling webpage and entered all the recycling information available on that webpage into the platform. Then when the counties and municipalities decide that they want to become fully active in the service and with the platform, all they need to do is go on and confirm the information already inputted into the system and then add any additional information they want. Then they can go through a process of inputting address and zone information so residents can have the ability to search the app with their specific location and get the most correct data and pickup schedules. Some residents only need to select their town and their zone. Others have to enter their address. It really depends on the town's program and how it's set up. Now, how can Recycle Coach help with recycling? The first is very simple. It's a reduction in phone calls. You can have everything in your app that they can report be sent to the specific people in your township or in your county who answer those questions. So you won't have to answer a call all day and then transfer to different people and get disconnected, and you can work on other more important recycling tasks. Another thing is inclement weather alerts. Every time you need to cancel collection due to snow or any other extreme weather, you can do that from home. Whoever has access to the admin page can just send out an alert saying, hey, collection is canceled today, and they could say, stay tuned for a new date, or here's the date when you can put out your bins. You can do this from home through the admin page. You can also set it up to only send to the specific zones in your town that will be affected that day. So not everyone will get it, just the people in the zone whose day will be canceled. You can also figure out what your residents are confused about through the metrics and the focused education. And this is really helpful when you're planning your educational newsletters or calendars or whatever program that you are using in your town. It's really great to know what people need to know, so you can really focus your education. Next is social media and advertising. Recycle Coach will work with you to create social media ads or different advertisements, banners, posters, flyers, mailings, any sort of post for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They really work with you to help create what you need that will make your program successful. Some of the additional services that are offered are is that Recycle Coach is always innovating new ways to educate residents. And right now, what they're working on is Recycle Coach University, which is a tool that will be a learning based on users' behavior and tendencies, messaging and lessons that will engage the user to interact more with the pertinent topics regarding waste and recycling. And this is mostly done online. And it's a really great program if you want to learn more about it. So what are the Recycle Coach tools? First is their educational characters. Each one has a name and a function on the app. It just makes things a little bit more fun and exciting. Here is an example of the collection schedules. You can customize the icons and the colors. You can do recycling and solid waste collection, bulky waste, yard waste, other specialty events held by either the municipality or the county, or even if your state holds an event, you can enter that here and customize everything. Here they could set reminders. They can export the calendars into their phones or their computers, download it if they want to print it and put it on their fridge, and you can switch zones if you're accidentally in the wrong zone. This is one of the characters, Milo, and he is with the What Goes Where tool. So you can search for a specific item and it'll tell you what to do with that item in your zone or your town or your county. It also gives you some popular searches. These are some of the more common things people search for. And they also have a lot of name equivalency. So you can say aluminum can, soda can, a specific brand, and it'll come to the same information. They have a lot of resources there. This is an example of what you might get if you search something for furniture. In this case, it was bulky items. It'll tell you when to put it out, or where to drop it off, or who to call, whatever you input. And then there'll be additional links. So in this case, there's collection requirements, but also reuse options. And this town is saying, hey, these are some other options if you don't want to throw it away, how it can be reused if possible. Another example here is oil-based paints. In this case, it's a household hazardous waste item. It tells you exactly what to do, who to call, and gives you some additional options if you want to learn about a drop-off event. What is hazardous waste? And how do you know warning labels? And you can customize that as well. You can link to blogs or other additional information, and that's that extra educational component that they have. You can also report a problem from everything from potholes, miscollection, graffiti, and litter. You can absolutely customize this to only offer what you want to offer, and you can link it so every issue gets sent to the correct person. Also, if there's technical issues, those will go directly to Recycle Coach. You won't have to deal with those. There's also a photo attachment option. So if you're doing a pothole or graffiti, you can have them attach a photo so you can see it. These are some additional news and blog posts that have been seen on Recycle Coach. And again, those are constantly updating. You could see some messages that the DEP sent out on a statewide level for Earth Day last year. And now we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Erin, for that excellent presentation. Please remember, we're going to hold all questions until the end. Our next speaker today is Sarah Reeves with the Chittenden County Solid Waste District in Vermont. Sarah, take it away.
Hello, my name is Sarah Reeves, and I'm the Executive Director for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. I'm here to talk to you today about our recent campaign, Recycle Like You Live Here. Vermont is a very rural state. We have approximately 630,000 residents in Vermont, and we are a little bit different in that most residents contract directly with a trash hauler for their recycling and trash collecting services. We also have an extensive system of drop-off centers or convenience centers so that if you don't want to hire a hauler and pay the hauler directly, you can bring your trash and your recycling and your food scraps to one of these drop-off centers on your own. Something that I think my colleagues around the country will certainly recognize is that recycling isn't universal in that you can have differences within the same state from city to city, town to town, county to county, and it can be confusing. So back in 2012, the Vermont legislature passed Act 148, which is Vermont's universal recycling law. And what that did was it established a mandatory recyclables list, and it phased that in. So it phased in the process of banning these different materials from landfill disposal. And that finally, the last component of that took place in 2015. And in Vermont, we have two materials recovery facilities, one in the county that I serve in Chittenden County. It's located in Williston, Vermont, and the other MRF is located in Rutland. And over the years, they were mostly aligned with the materials they accepted, but there were some slight differences. So one of the purposes of this campaign was really to make sure that we were all on the same page as far as what was accepted and where and why. So another reason that we want to make sure that now that mandatory recycling was in place in 2015, that those of us who had been doing mandatory recycling for a long time within the state, recognized that we needed to continue to re-educate, and that it isn't true that once you learn something once that you're one and done. And again, that's something I think is pretty familiar to everybody out there listening. So I think something else that colleagues out there will definitely know and appreciate is how difficult it is to explain what contamination is, and not assuming that everybody just knows. And a lot of the times it is wishful recycling, right? People just kind of hoping that they'll put something in there that kind of looks a little bit sort of like what we take, so maybe they'll figure out a home for it. And maybe if they get enough of it, enough pens, that they'll be able to find a market for them. And that's just not the case as we're aware. So getting that across to folks is that is really important, and telling them why it's a big deal. And it's not just a big deal because they're putting in materials that we can't sell, there is no market for, or the wrong kinds of plastic, etc., but also things that could potentially harm the people who work there. And that was a key component of this campaign, was to let people know that there are people behind the buckets, and that it's not all sorted by machines. And that was a revelation to a lot of people who had never taken one of our tours. And we also want to communicate that, look, the Vermont way is being responsible about the environment. And one of the things to really help the environment is to make sure that the recycling that you do put in your bin is prepared the way we need it to be prepared, and that you're not overburdening the system, and that you're not potentially putting our employees in harm's way. Because the CSWD MRF serves approximately 50% of residents and businesses in the state of Vermont, we knew that it was important to have some partners in this campaign. So the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources approached us and Casella Waste Systems to coordinate a campaign to talk at a more broad level, and that's what we ended up doing. So we agreed on priorities, which were really to focus on materials that could be harmful to employees and to haulers, and to talk about proper preparation of the recycling so that it would have the most value. We ran a 3-month campaign between November of 2018 and February of 2019, with the focus being on 2 components. So the first one was to emphasize that to only put in paper, cardboard, and clean containers in your recycling bin. Number 1, that's it. And then number 2, that if you put other things in there that don't belong, that aren't paper, cardboard, or clean containers, that not only could it be downright gross, but it could be dangerous. And that was really critical, was to be, again, focusing on the people, not just the thought that it was machines. So we used traditional media, social media, and non-traditional media. Our traditional media being newspapers, newsprint, TV, radio. Social media, we used Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Non-traditional media that we have a lot of luck with are advertising in movie theaters. People always seem to hear it and see it there. And then an underutilized point of contact that we started using with a previous campaign was to run 15-second versions of the ads, sometimes 30 seconds, as our hold message. When people call into the office and we're connecting them, putting them on hold to connect them to someone, they would hear this ad.
Hi, I'm Josh from the Chittenden Solid Waste District, also known as CSWD. We have a big recycling facility in Williston where real people, like me, sort paper, cardboard, and clean containers. And you know what really gets my goat? When people put batteries, plastic bags, or other things that don't belong in the recycling bin. Batteries and electronics are the #1 cause of fires at our facility, and plastic bags get tangled up in our machines. Every day we have to climb in and cut them out. Good news is, there's so many places where you can drop off bags, batteries, and more for special recycling. After all, we take care of our resources around here. Part of what makes us Vermonters. Recycle like you live here. Put only paper, cardboard, and clean containers in the bin. Find out more at cswd.net/recycle. By the way, you know what else kind of chafes my chaps? Peanut butter jars that haven't been rinsed. They're not only gross, dirty containers actually reduce the value of other recycling. And that's just not the Vermont way. Recycle like you live here. Put only paper, cardboard, and clean containers in the bin. Find out more at cswd.net/recycle.
Here's some numbers on how well the campaign worked. And I don't have numbers for the statewide efforts, but this is what we saw at CSWD. And so we saw a huge involvement with our Facebook posts and click-through and shares, which was phenomenal. We also saw a great increase in the average amount of time people spent on our site and how many pages that they actually view. So going from maybe 2 pages to 3, it's really huge. It means that we were able to direct them to specific pages to that cswd.net, from cswd.net/recycling onto other resources within our website, which was great. We didn't have as much success with Twitter, and we found that for our demographic, which was basically folks from 25 to 65, so a pretty large demographic. When we're slicing it down and taking a look at the numbers, we found that Twitter was not where people would go to find their information from us about recycling, but they were going, and they do go to Facebook. One thing that we didn't measure as much either, and we're doing more of now, is use of Instagram. And our YouTube channel also had all of the ads on there as well, so that people could go and take a look at them at their leisure. Thank you for watching and listening, and I look forward to hearing your questions about our campaign.
Thank you, Sarah. Great presentation. Remember, if you have questions for Sarah, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Next up is Leslie Hatchell of the York County government in South Carolina.
York County borders North Carolina and sits below Charlotte, North Carolina. York County is 696 square miles and has a population of 280,979. There are 9 incorporated towns, 5 of which have curbside programs. York County government owns and operates 16 collection and recycling centers or rural drop sites and a material recovery facility. The gray shaded areas on the map are the incorporated areas, which leaves a large portion of the county as rural. In July of 2018, York County opened a new 35,000 square foot material recovery facility, or MRF. Previously, there was a small, very antiquated facility for sorting recycling that we had outgrown, and most of the single stream recycling was being shipped to a recycling company for sorting. The MRF was funded through a bond referendum and cost $8,450,000. The equipment features a pre-sort line with a double-deck OCC screen, which reduces wrapping and improves cardboard recovery, and a fine screen. A ballistic separator to separate fiber from containers, an automated container sorting line, including a PET plastic optical sorter, a magnet and eddy current separator, and a 2-ram baler. It has the capability of processing 10 tons per hour, and on average, we have been processing 6.5 to 7 tons per hour, 5 days a week. There are 5 full-time staff that work at the MRF, and it requires 15 to 20 temporary staff members to work the sorting line. There is also a classroom and a mezzanine for viewing the processing, which are both great for education programs. In preparation for opening the MRF, glass was eliminated from mixed recycling. We knew that broken glass was a major contaminant to other recyclables and would be damaging to the MRF equipment. A timeline was planned for implementing this change. Flyers were handed out to residents at the 16 collection and recycling centers. Banners announcing the change were hung at the centers, and posts were made on social media. Glass is still accepted at the recycling centers, but only in designated containers and separated by color. Removing glass from mixed recycling has not hurt glass recycling for our county. Since having residents place glass in designated containers, the total tonnage has almost doubled. In 1998, York County started giving residents blue plastic bags to deliver mixed recycling to the centers. The goal was to make recycling easier for residents in the unincorporated areas by not having to separate the recyclables once they arrived at the center. In preparation for opening the MRF, bagged recycling had to be eliminated. 22-gallon bins and reusable tote bags are given to residents to deliver mixed recycling to the centers. Originally, we were trying to continue to recycle the plastic bags, but we couldn't keep them clean and dry. And also, there is no available market to send bales of bags to for recycling. So effective November 1st, 2018, bags were no longer accepted for recycling at the centers. Residents are now encouraged to recycle plastic bags at a local retail store. Every load delivered to the MRF is graded using a tracking form that was designed by the Recycling Partnership. Customers are charged $35 per ton tipping fee for recycling. If a load is graded C with contamination more than 20%, the customer is charged a special handling fee of $50 per ton in addition to the $35 per ton tipping fee. Photographs of contaminated loads are sent to the customer along with the tracking form. Contamination prior to COVID was 20%. Currently, it is about 33%. We found the most effective tool for tackling contamination is constant, clear, and consistent communication with staff, customers, and residents. We also try to anticipate program changes or issues to address them ahead of time rather than at the last minute. Communication takes place through easy-to-read signs at the collection and recycling centers, events, MRF tours, presentations, gas pump ads, Keep York County Beautiful board members, flyers given out at the centers, recycling bin and tote bag distributions, and social media.
Thank you, Leslie. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them after our next speaker. Our final speaker this afternoon is Eduardo Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm an operations manager with the City of Phoenix Public Works Department. To give you a little background on what we do, so I work in the solid waste diversion and disposal division. We manage 2 transfer stations, 2 MRFs, 1 open landfill, 5 closed landfills, and 1 compost facility. Being the 5th largest city in the US, we manage about 170,000 tons of inbound recycled material between both of our MRFs. And we also take recycled material from other cities from around the valley. The reason why I'm here today is to actually discuss our recent upgrade that we did to our North Gateway MRF. And a lot of it was upgrades to our existing equipment and some of the improvements that we saw from that. So let's go a little bit into why we decided to upgrade our North Gateway facility. For one, a lot of our existing infrastructure started to become obsolete. And this goes into sort of our second point, and a lot of it had to do with the change in the composition stream itself. As many of you are aware, in the 1980s, we had a lot of newspaper in the stream. If we go into the 90s, we had a lot of phone books mixed with newspapers as well. And then, you go into the 2000s, and even now, you're seeing a lot of plastic coming through. You're seeing a lot of cardboard coming through. So that change in the composition itself started making it very difficult for our equipment to capture a lot of this new material that's coming in. So although we were capturing some, we weren't capturing everything that we could. And this goes into my third point, and the biggest reason why we sort of had to change ourselves as well. So the biggest change why we had to sort of adapt was the change in the quality specifications. So as many of you are aware, China's national sort policy had a significant impact in the recycling industry and required many MRFs to adjust to new quality specifications, specifically with paper. For us, that meant that we had to adjust a lot of our equipment to, meet the specifications required. So 2 of the biggest changes that we made were we had to slow down our machines. So we essentially went from 25 to 27 tons per hour to about 20 tons per hour, to slow down the machine so that we could capture a lot of that, more of that contaminants that are going through and taking that stuff out. The second big change that we made was that at our North Gateway facility specifically is that we had to raise our star screens to capture more material that we were losing. So what that meant was that as you raise the star screens, we were getting cleaner material coming in through our stream, but what it did as well was that we were losing a lot of good recoverable material that we were not capturing. So that led to a residue essentially going from about 25% to almost 45 to 50% in the very beginning. So now that we knew that we had to upgrade our facility, we had to find the funding. To do that, we partnered with the Closed Loop Fund that provided $3 million in interest-free loan. The city of Peoria, who brings material to us, offered $1 million, and we funded the remainder. The total cost of this project was $4.5 million. What we got for the $4.5 million was essentially 6 pieces of critical equipment that we really needed at the facility. One of those being the drum feeder. And what the drum feeder essentially does is that it regulates the material coming in through the belt. So it regulates the consistency flow of material coming in. Whereas before we were essentially just feeding the belt with the loader, and you get pockets of material as the loader was filling it in and out. Now with the drum feeder itself, what it did was that you just fill up the feeder from the top, and then the belt itself, on a consistent basis is just flowing material through. So it always gives the loader enough time to keep filling it up, and then the flow continues to be consistent. We also had 3 old star screens that we took out. Like many, plastic bags cause many issues to our equipment. On a daily basis, the entire facility would be shut down for workers to cut away plastic bags that wrapped around the rotating shafts that help separate paper from cans and bottles. To alleviate this problem, we took out the 3 old star screens and installed 2 new 440 anti-wrap screens. These new anti-wrap screens have been game changers because they don't become loaded with film or other screen material, whereas the old star screens would constantly get wrapped. We'd have to shut down the facility. They also take less than 10 minutes to clean up. And in this image that you're looking at right now, it shows you perfectly that instead of now it being wrapped up through those screens, you're actually just seeing it, how they all just pile up at the very bottom. So when everything's shut down, you got people who can just go in there and just grab that plastic, pull it out, a lot easier than having to, unwrap them and taking out everything from what we had on the old screens. Another big upgrade that we made was installing a paper optical. Before material is fed into this belt, glass and other material is crushed and drops down a chute to be sorted. Paper that makes it through here is then caught by the optical and diverted to another paper belt. Any material that is not paper then drops and goes into a new ballistic separator to be sorted. The installation of the ballistic separator has been effective at removing additional contaminants from the stream, and is really our last line of defense before plastic goes through our opticals. Another piece of equipment that we got as part of the upgrade was a plastic optical. And right now we have it shooting off on PET, but essentially part of the upgrade that we got from the ballistic separator and the material that comes in through this belt is just plastics. So when it's shooting off on the plastic, it's going so much faster because everything that's coming in through there is just, clean material. We're capturing a lot more than what we were capturing before. I have another slide where I'll show you guys sort of the significant increases that we made from that. But another big change that we made was that the old plastic optical that we had, we essentially retrofitted that to just shoot off on polypropylene. So now our polypropylene, we're capturing about double the amount that we were capturing before. So there's been a plus on that side as well. So here are some positive results that we've seen from the upgrade already. We've seen a 15% increase in glass. We've seen a 54% increase in paper, a 70% increase in PET, a 41% increase in cardboard, and a 52% increase in aluminum. Another positive result has been the amount of revenue we've generated. So from July through September of 2019, you can see that we were making under $200,000. From October through December, that's when we shut down our MRF to upgrade it. But if you look at the blue bar graphs from January through July, it's been a steady increase for us. And the gray bar graphs essentially show where we would have been had we not upgraded the facility ourselves. Another unforeseen positive outcome is that due to COVID-19, the city as a whole has seen a 20% increase in inbound recycle, and this has to do with more people staying at home. Because of the upgrade, we've easily managed the increase in tonnage and have also taken on another city's recycle after their processor's MRF burned down. Overall, this upgrade has allowed us to capture more material that otherwise would have been lost, and has lowered our rejects from 45% a year from a year and a half ago to about 25%. There's always room for improvement, but for us, this upgrade has had an overall positive return. Thank you all.
Thank you, Eduardo, for wrapping us up. We are now going to turn to questions. I'm going to ask my panelists to turn their webcams on during the Q&A session. And please leave your microphones muted unless you're answering questions.